So this will pivot to the first thing I wanted to talk about, because the second thing was John Mark Comer. Yeah. The first thing is this. I was listening to still Carey Nieuwhof podcast because he had different guests on each episode talking about church trends, and then this person, he's the CEO of the Barna Group or something.
Barnabas.
Barna,
which is kind of reaches out to Muslims, I think.
No, not that. Barna Group is a survey group in the U.S.
Barna.
Barna Group. And they do some stuff in New Zealand as well. Basically, they just survey Christians and try to get a pulse as to what's going on.
Yeah.
And anyway, he talked about what Generation Z is kind of leaning towards, demographically speaking, with the surveys they do and stuff. And he used a phrase that I didn't like, and it's not because I didn't think he was right. It's just because I think it misrepresented other generations and literally every other generation after Christ to now.
Right.
And I think he said that the baby boomers and Gen X, they had a form of church and expression and methodology around church that was certainly more attractional and more polished and more lights and more whatever. Nothing new. We understand that. And millennials kind of adopted it, but they kind of wanted to go small and go into like the community-based ministries, like you said, small home churches and things like that. That was the bent for millennials. And then he said that Gen Z, they just want the real thing.
Right.
And they want, and how he defined the real thing from what the dad is telling him was that they want things that aren't polished, they're stripped down, more authentic. And that's certainly, if you look at general culture, that generation online, when they post content and videos and stuff, it's intentionally looks like it's not polished, right? It looks really haggard, but that's a part of the aesthetic. But one thing, when I heard they want the real thing, this new generation wants the real thing, I was thinking, didn't every generation want the real thing?
I agree. I don't think
that's right. But they want the real thing in what they consider to be authentic and real and true.
Yeah.
But I feel like every generation,
I agree,
wants what's real and true.
That's what you chase.
That's what you chase.
Do you know what's so funny? Because Tom Holland, I think, he would say this is such a Protestant move.
Yeah.
This is a Protestant move. It's the radicalness of it. They're always wanting to reform.
Mm-hmm.
So here again is another reformation.
Yeah.
So every generation reforms the last generation. No one has ever done it right.
Because it's the water we're swimming in and we can't help ourselves.
Exactly right. So this radicalness of wanting to reform is completely, is all part of it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, in my mind, I can't, thinking about the Orthodox Church, there's been no reformation there. And the real thing for them is to be part of the history of the church.
Yeah.
And to carry on those deep, deep traditions. That's the real thing. Funny for us, that's not.
No, isn't it?
It's to reform and get back to something authentic the whole time.
Because we feel like
what
we've
is that
changed it, or we've...
Exactly.
I don't know what the real... I don't know. What is the real thing? Like, Grant, your generation wants the real thing.
Lots of things are swirling around in my head, and they're part of kind of...
It's cynical?
No, because I just had this conversation yesterday, and it's sort of in the back of my head, so I must say it was... So my neighbour down the road, he comes over a bit drunk the night before, and he says, we've bought a caravan. And you go, this is fantastic thing. Anyway,
he didn't buy that when he was drunk.
Fixed up my stove. And anyway, but what he was saying was, he says, that's right. Because I said, look, I've had cancer and this is something we wanted to do,
Yeah.
But his whole view, was hedonist.
Right.
And I kind of, when he said it all, he put me in that, and I thought, that's not it.
Yeah, right.
And
he put you in what?
Put me in that bucket of being a hedonist.
Right. Yeah.
I get it. You've got to live I party every night and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I just realised, and I just thought, oh my goodness. So there were a lot of tensions in me going, how would I ever share the Christian story with you?
Yeah, right.
Do you disagree with him in that moment if he's drunk?
No. Well, no, but he thought, he was drunk, but he was sober enough to have a bit of...
Yeah,
he wasn't completely.
And he
gone.
assumed that you were living. You were living the same life as he was living.
Going, no, I'm not.
Yeah,
and I'm going. How as a Christian do I have a caravan?
Yeah,
and enjoy it.
Yeah,
and be Christian. That's what I started coming to. And how does that witness to him? Because actually, what he's seeing is I'm just like all the rest of the hedonists, living my life, and I've only got this amount of years, so you've got to live out the best that you can. So you take what you can. I'm going. No.
Yeah,
And I felt this conflict, actually. I felt kind of really misunderstood.
Did
Yeah.
you?
But then I thought, how do I tell him? Because part of me was this, again, which I kind of want to stir up in me, of how do I tell him about Christ and the Christian story? And I felt kind of like, to be honest, I felt not a failure, but I didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
Didn't know what to
totally.
say.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I felt this tension
Yep.
because I'm just living out of a different lens.
Yep.
I'm seeing it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was another one, going through the last night looking at, you belong to a caravan association. And as I'm going through it, because I'm just looking, what is there? And then you go through it, and then there's the Good News Caravan Club North.
Yeah.
The Good News. And I said to Linda, Linda, that looks like a Christian one. And then I thought to myself, why would I wouldn't want to belong to a Christian one? Because actually,
Yeah.
in one sense, to be in the world, if you're all together with Christians, then where would you be sharing your...
exactly.
So it's the lens you're seeing.
Yeah.
It's the world you're seeing.
Yeah, and then this is where I get I feel that tension too,
Do you?
Graham, because I've been feeling that too. But then we get back to, I have a different lens of viewing the world, but my life looks exactly exactly the same. And then I come back to, well, if my life is, if I do everything exactly the same, then I am the same.
Yeah.
Who cares what my lens is? If
That's
I'm
right.
living exactly the same life as someone who does not believe in Jesus, as say, if all my habits are the same, if all my goals are the same, then I'm living a hedonistic life as well. Surely I'm living a hedonistic life. The scaffolding of my life is no different than the scaffolding of their life.
Well, that's the
Then
part. That's
how,
the part that
how
kind
Christian am I?
Yeah, that's the part that gave me the tension
Who
because I'm
cares
going.
if I believe in Jesus?
Yeah.
Who cares? Honestly, my beliefs aren't going to save me. It's the way that I live. That's the impact of the world.
Exactly.
So that, yeah.
So I felt that.
I feel that tension too.
Yeah, I felt that tension, and I
Man.
thought, oh,
So full on.
yeah.
Dude, I had this thought.
I haven't renounced anything.
No.
There's nothing I've renounced for the gospel.
Yeah.
Honestly, nothing.
Yeah.
So,
I just buy different books than the guy in the house next door to me.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
dude,
I'm sorry. I'm being real harsh on myself
No,
because
no, no.
That's a
a
huge
part of me,
critique.
a part of me is wondering. I'm not saying be a radical
Yeah.
because that means something different to everybody.
Yeah.
And some people are legitimately fundamentalist radical, and
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm not thinking that. But a part of me is like, why does the government give us 33% of our giving back when we
Right.
give to charitable organizations and
yeah.
churches?
Yeah.
I understand one reason is because it means that we can do the work that the government's essentially paying 1/3
Yeah.
for. Fair enough. I get it. But another reason is, why does the church still have that benefit?
Right.
Well, is it a cultural hang-up, or is it because we're too tame and we fit so well within the culture itself?
Well, I think this comes back to Constantine.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, this is what happens when Christianity becomes a state religion. You build it into your systems. Now, there's been good stuff about that, obviously.
Yeah.
Human rights. We try to make our organizations, fair for everyone. But on top of that as well, we treat the church, the church has been absorbed into the system.
Yep.
There's plus and minuses.
There are.
Yeah. I come back to Paul as, reading through 1st and 2nd Corinthians, and the way that he radicalizes their lives because of the gospel changes everything. He's like, stop sleeping with your slaves.
Yeah.
Pretty much he says it.
Yeah.
Stop taking advantage of their bodies.
Yeah. I'm like, wait, what? They're mine now.
In fact, stop raping them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're your brothers and sisters. Their body is now Christ's body.
Yeah.
Now that is a radicalization of how people are living in society. He changes the whole structure of their life.
Yeah.
What they thought was normal, now he radicalizes. He says that's no longer normal. And I just think of my own life, that the structure of my life is exactly the same as the world I'm living in. Where does the gospel radicalize my life, that I have to live now differently? I'm happy to think differently. No problem.
Yeah.
But am I happy to live differently?
Yeah.
Not so sure. This is where I think Paul comes, not with rhetoric, but in power.
Yeah.
Man, there's power in changing your life.
And I think that comes back to the kind of where we started.
Yeah.
About the preaching.
Yep.
How do we talk about this?
Yeah.
When you hear the stories of Jesus and other stories, it's, as we're talking, how do I work that out?
Yeah,
Because I mean,
man.
a little bit of
agree.
the question I've been asked this over the last couple of days is, I really like having a caravan. How do I be a Christian and have a caravan?
Yeah.
It's not wrong.
Yeah. It's.
But what does that look like?
It's not wrong.
Yeah. And to take that one step further, I think, like, if we go to that, what's the real thing? And within the conversation that this podcast is having about trends and stuff, obviously it's a church leadership podcast, so they stay within the niche of church leadership, which I completely get.
Yeah.
But when it's like, this generation wants the real thing, it's like you're having that conversation within the paradigm of Sunday morning expression of church, and how do you evangelize people outside of church? That's the only paradigm structure with which you're having that conversation. But how you're defining it, Jonathan and Graham, what's the real thing? The real thing is looking real different to your surroundings
Yeah.
because of who's Lord in your life.
Yeah.
And you can believe all the right things. You can say, I think after the sermon we should have more response times than like contemplative times.
Yeah.
That's the real thing. I'm like, no, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right.
It does matter, but it doesn't matter. Like, people should respond to things, and they should contemplate things, and they should be in conversation with others after the word is spoken, and they should, all these things are true. They should be done. But if we're talking about what's the real thing,
Yeah.
it's living differently as a result of who's Lord.